uh going into this new year and being so much more booked and busy than I was last year has really opened my eyes to a lot of things in the TTRPG community, including and notwithstanding the fact that we still have to push for BIPOC representation at actual play tables. Uh, a lot of people don't even have diversity promises or missions. And I love playing at diverse tables, and that means at least 50% are not just white. So I love seeing that. I would love to see more of that. I have a lot of fun at a table seeing representation that's not just coming from me, and I would love to see more of that. So if you're in the TTRPG space, if you are trying to produce actual plays, if you're casting actual plays, if you're casting podcasts, if you're reaching out to people to interview, please look at your metrics. It is very easy when you view everyone by the content that you like to end up accidentally not being as diverse as you could be. It is an active decision, and we are trusting you with making that active decision to make sure that people hear us and see us, because we belong here just like anyone else. Black people belong in storytelling and in tabletop playing games. They belong in actual plays and podcasts and interviews. They belong in art. They belong in cinema. So please consider that as an active factor and not just as an if we have it, that's great. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the people who are cast. And I want you to take that forward with this Black History Month.
Yeah, that was so eloquently put. I agree with all of that. I think all of that is right on the money. I'm gonna say that I think that I what I would really encourage people to do is to approach conversations in particular surrounding either blackness or race, especially if you, let's say, are somebody who is, and I have worked in politics and so I know this demographic, who is like a relatively like well-meaning person who doesn't view themselves as somebody who exhibits like racist behavior, but is struggling to identify a connection point through which they could ask questions that they have, figure out best practices, but they don't want to because they are worried, and there is some merit to this, about burdening their black friend or burdening the person of color with, like educating them. So number one, like educate yourself to the extent that you can, and then if you have questions about the black experience, which is a like, I'm fine sharing that, right? Like if it helps, empathy I think is one of our strongest teachers, and if I can better help you understand or even just draw some parallels to the black experience, even though you don't share that identity, then that carries like some power to me. But I will say this: be humble, and I think if you approach conversations with humility, it's okay. And I've said this on a podcast, Table Talk, with Mariah and Ale. It is okay to ask if you can ask a question, right? Like it's more than fine to say, I am curious about X. I don't want to burden you. I also, don't know how many spoons you have. Would you be comfortable about talking about Y? Right? You are then affording them the opportunity to either engage or disengage at their leisure, at their time. And that I think is a really good place to start. To the companies, to the channels, to the publishing studios, to like all of the different organizational pieces that make up this industry, I think that the expectation has shifted. I think that this is no longer having your table be representative of this community. And I went to PAX U in person and got to see in person how diverse it is, but it is now the norm. Make no mistake, right? Like, and this is one of those things where like it is not just enough, right? Like, please do not do this thing where, like, even if it's well intentioned, you kind of go out and supermarket sweep a bunch of like black creators without like having the safe environment for them first. Really do the house cleaning for your community. Right now, if you were to invite like a bunch of really talented creators of color to your server, to your community, can you say with complete certainty, without a shadow of a doubt, that they would have a positive experience, that your community is repped and is like has seen this kind of representation before, etc. So it's more about just the acquisition of talent of color, because if you invite somebody on, right, have them on for a one shot and then send them off and then continue to only hire like white or cast white creators outside of that, that's tokenization, that's dehumanization, that's taking a human being, all of their collected life experience, their soul, their fears, their dreams, and making them keys that you can jangle so that you somehow get cool liberal points. Don't do that. That's lame. That fucking sucks. And it has happened to me more times than like I care to count. So think about, like, yes, the acquisition, and they are out there, diversify your social media feed, but also do the house, get your house in order, right? Make sure you have the space for Black creators to not just show up and to not even just exist, but to flourish, right? Like, that's what I would want. Like, I would want anybody, if I was a production company or casting, like, you want to have a positive effect on the lives of the people and the talented creatives who are gifting you with their time and their creativity. So to just boil it down, ask if you can ask questions. That is totally fine, right? Like, if you ask your Black friend, I have a question about X, that is fine, because you're affording them the opportunity. They can then either consent to that conversation to go with you further, or they can say, I don't have the spoons. I don't feel like talking about that. They don't really need it. It's Thursday, right? You can just say whatever, but like, just be willing to like listen, meet them where they're at. And then the second point I would make, take your diversity efforts one step past acquisition and recruitment, right? Retention, maintenance. Do you have the community, the staff, all of the pieces in place for a multicultural um, community? So those are things I don't think people typically think about. Those are like that's the advice that I would give people
Yeah.
in this industry who are trying to start those conversations.
And if I could piggyback off that, this has come up a lot lately. You cannot deem yourself a safe space. That is a privilege that is given to you once enough marginalized folks feel safe enough to say that you are a safe space. So you don't have to label that yourself, because you need to walk the walk, and we will let you know when you're walking. So you have to do the house cleaning and the maintenance and the upkeep in order to flourish in that way. Just as Aetherius said. That's all I want to say. That's not a self-given certificate. That is an award that we give you.